Durian ASEAN.
ASEAN Dailies. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Good morning, this is Arlene.
Hi, this is Gowri.
And you are with us at our ASEAN Daily, where we bring you news from Southeast Asia or concern our region. So the first news of today is not really part of Southeast Asia just yet, but of course it has an observer status in the Southeast Asian region, ASEAN. I'm talking about East Timor. So news about East Timor is quite rare, but once in a while you will hear about them, right, Gowri?
Yeah, especially this one that's been in the news for quite some time now, where the East Timor's president accepted the resignation of the independence hero, Xanana Gusmao, as prime minister on Monday. And this will actually make way for a major government overhaul and probably even a new chapter in this country's very short but also prominent history.
So Gusmao, he, in terms of his background, he has served as either the president or the premier since East Timor's independence from Indonesia in 2002. They had a long struggle with the Indonesian military, and since then he has submitted his resignation.
And according to the analysts, they said that it's actually a good thing that he stepped down because he's been in the position for a very long time, and it's best to make way for the new generation, for the younger people to come in with fresh ideas, with fresh ideas for policies and all, as opposed to just having the same person for more than 10 years in this case.
I bet they have a similar system like Malaysia, where it's not it's not the people that select the president, is the party itself. Because in Indonesia, it would be the people who select the president.
But yeah, in this case, it's the prime minister, so that's probably why there are similarities with Malaysia itself. And they have not chosen a successor for Gusmao yet, but they have a contender who is their former health minister, who is Rui Araujo. I hope this is the right pronunciation. But he will remain in the government, albeit holding a lesser role, probably as
observer,
an advisor or anything like that.
So Gusmao, just a bit of background why he's so popular back then, I'm not sure now, because he spent years living in the jungle during Indonesian occupation. As you know, it's quite bloody and one of the worst history of Indonesia, and had signaled over the past year that he would be stepping down, but he constantly delayed his move, and repeatedly he sought to ensure everything was in place first before giving through a smooth transition. Similar to the case in Malaysia, if I'm not mistaken, during Tun Mahathir's time, it took him quite a while to choose the successor and to even let go of his reign after 22 years of being the prime minister of Malaysia back then. But from 2002 until 2014, how many years?
That's
12 years, right?
Yeah, 12 to 13 years.
And within that 12 to 13 years, to me, is quite long. To me, the maximum should be 2 terms, which is about 8 years. Longer than that, maybe, you will get all this cronyism, corruption coming in, anytime soon.
And that's another thing that East Timor probably also have in common with Malaysia, where one of the reason that Gusmao had to resign was because a lot of his ministers in his coalition were actually accused of corruption in the country. And now that he has stepped down, the opposition party has also started coming out, which is the Fretilin Party. And this
what's the party name again?
Fretilin.
Oh, that's so cute.
I think so. And so it seems that they are trying to come up and play a more prominent role in the country's politics as opposed to before, where they were probably suppressed by Gusmao.
I think East Timor is very unique in terms of its history, because even since 2002, interestingly, they are the only country in Southeast Asia, if I'm not mistaken, that has signed all the UN declaration, but at the same time they have a lot of the third world problems, like we said, like you mentioned earlier, corruption, cronyism, and also in terms of inefficiency, high poverty rate, high inequality. These are third world countries' problem that they are still suffering until now. So I think a bit of a change of government, or a bit of a frequent change of a government, would be healthier rather than having someone rule over more than a decade.
Of course, that doesn't always guarantee that things will improve, but even when Gusmao was in power for so long, it seems that a lot of problems in the country were not really addressed, were not solved. They're still very poor. They have a lot of economic problems in the country. So probably a change will be good, but we still don't know for sure if the new guy is gonna be any better than Gusmao.
But I like the name Fretilin.
Fretilin. Okay, maybe somebody from Fretilin after this.
Well, another news coming from Malaysia, as we all know, yesterday was a historic moment for Anwar. He gave his farewell speech, and Anwar is not in a good place at his time now. He was he was being hampered by so many charges against him, and now it's taking a toll towards his future and career as a politician in Malaysia, as the opposition politician in Malaysia.
And some of the things that he highlighted in his speech was, of course, the economic issue in the country, especially with the weakening of the ringgit, that Malaysia has also been under the spotlight now for trafficking, of course, freedom of speech in terms of media, or students, or anyone at all, members of the public, as well as a lot of religious and racial tolerance among people, and all this came in the light of his farewell speech as a guilty verdict from the country's top court that might seal his political career. And we don't know if we are ready for something like this. This is a very controversial case in Malaysia itself. And of course,
in fact, it's too controversial. I think people can actually make a stand-up comedy out of this, or a skit out of this, and because a lot of things that happened surrounding the court cases of Anwar Ibrahim, and how he's being charged and being deemed guilty for things that are just dumbfounding to a lot of people in Malaysia. But I think the bigger picture here is not just about him. I think he's just one of the many areas in Malaysia that is really not right now. For example, I think a lot of Malaysia feel that the democracy that we once aspire to have, or at least the voices that we once aspire to nurture, to grow, is still being hampered even after Mahathir has stepped down, in a way. And not to add more salt to the wound, but our economic situation is not doing well. A lot of people have very gloomy prediction or projection about how Malaysia's economy would turn out to be.
And also a lot of parties in this case, whether it's someone prominent or whether it's your regular Malaysian, a lot of people have also voiced their concern regarding this. Of course, like you mentioned, it's really not just about Anwar in this case. It goes back to the entire country itself, how much freedom we are given in terms of expressing, or even in terms of getting justice for a crime or whatever that happens in the country. But we'll have to find out today to see that if we are going to have a justice or an acquittal for Anwar. and it's a very sad thing.
It is.
As well.
I mean, regardless whether you are a fan of Anwar or you are not a fan of Anwar, I think we should put partisan politics aside. I think we should look at a bigger picture here in terms of freedom of expression, in terms of justice, in terms of independence of the judiciary, and also in terms of whether is this the kind of democracy that we want for Malaysia, or are we aspiring of something greater? Both sides of the camp, whether you are pro-government or pro-opposition, I think it's good to see the Anwar case as beyond just a PKR or an Anwar case, but a case for Malaysian to aspire for a greater freedom in this country.
And you will never know until it actually happens to you, because usually when a regular Malaysian read the news and like, oh, okay, another person gets charged under this or under the Sedition Act or whatever it is, and they're like, there's this sense of complacency or ignorance that, oh, this is not going to happen to me, like, I don't really care, I don't want to get myself into trouble. But things like this will eventually catch up to you if you don't start reacting
and it
to
can
it.
end up as a police state, in a way that everyone is scared of even voicing out on Twitter. I mean, we have cases of, I think we all know, like, for example, Eric Paulson, where even a Twitter post can subject to scrutiny by the government, which is amazingly dumbfounding to me, to all.
It's not just about him getting charged as well. It was just merely him writing down his opinion in 140 characters, which probably meant he had to condense the whole thing and probably taken out of context as well. But you are right about that. It goes back to the Malaysians, and at the end of the day, we are all just gonna be a bunch of scared people who won't.
I mean, if you can't even voice out like "I love ice cream" on Twitter, then everything is kept inside you. Another news is about our neighbor Singapore. So 2015 actually marks 50 years of Singapore-India diplomatic ties. President Tony Tan Keng Yam state visit to India this week to commemorate the 50th anniversary of both countries. We seldom hear about Singapore's president, but Singapore is actually it has its own president, Tan Keng Yam, and its prime minister is Lee Hsien Loong. So this is actually a great, I would say, a great mark for the relationship between India and Singapore.
And the relationship between both countries was, of course, established a long time ago by Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew and also former Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru. And now it's they are trying to maintain that momentum and keep it going in the future now between Narendra Modi and the president of Singapore. And these two countries have actually been trying to work a lot of things together. I think we even reported about smart cities being set up in some places in India, and a lot of Singaporeans also trying to see how they can help India to come up, because they have a huge population over there, and what they don't have is a proper system or a proper structure and know how to make use of all the resources that they have.
Besides access to market, I think one of the key relationship between India and Singapore is access to talent. If you go to Singapore right now, you will see a lot of migrants from India. They are the new Indian, I would say the Indian expats, because they are very talented, especially in the areas of IT and technology. And a lot of them actually work for companies like Google, Microsoft and all that. A lot of people may not realize, but all the software and hardware of your iPhones and all that are actually being built by Indians, majority of them not by white people.
And another fun fact about this is that back in the 1900s, there are this group of people called the Chettiars who usually do business and financing, and I think up until today they are still known for that. And these people it seems that they were one of the first ones to actually go to Singapore and started investing there and be their first venture capitalist. So the relationship between India and Singapore actually goes back very long.
That's
Goes
the
back a long
1900s,
way.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they seem to have contributed a lot to Singapore's development, especially at the beginning stages of the country.
And for right now, what they are trying to re-establish is the idea of not just the smart city like you mentioned earlier, but also like in terms of education. That's why they are coming with newer engagements such as business schools, for example the Indian Institute of Management. I think what they are looking at is at the exchanges of knowledge and information. That's the key of a knowledge-based economy. When you look at India and Singapore, that's where they rely most of their income and profits, compared to, of course, country like Malaysia, Brunei, where we still rely majority of our profits from services and also on commodities.
So it seems that a lot of these Singapore-based companies are in India, and a lot of Indian-based companies are in Singapore, and they have a very mutual understanding going on there, and they hope to continue to grow in centuries to come.
Yeah. So we will take a short break. When we return, we will discuss more on other news from other Southeast Asia country.
ASEAN Dailies. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, this is Arlene.
Hi, this is Gowri.
And you are back with us at our ASEAN Daily. So we start off our second segment of our ASEAN Daily on Japan. So as we all know, Prayut Chan-o-cha, I love his name, the military prime minister has visited Japan, and they are reaffirming their economic ties.
And this visit is very important because they are actually discussing and trying to work a lot of things together apart from developing and strengthening their economic ties. They are also working on a major railway project that will actually span from east to west, which is from Thailand all the way to Tokyo, which is a very ambitious project, I would think. And also for Bangkok, to allow Beijing to build a major rail link connecting China's southern region to Bangkok. And this, the Japanese Prime Minister called this a very fruitful discussion because the ties between the two countries are actually becoming deeper as we go over the years.
So it's like a real marriage here. Marriage made in heaven. In fact, what they are calling for is a high quality relationship between two countries. It's high quality not just in terms of its infrastructure, collaboration and partnership, but also in terms of geopolitics. In this case, it would be China, reducing China's influence in the region by having more relationship with China's immediate neighbor like Japan.
And this visit is also important because as much as Thailand and Japan had a very good relationship in the past, ever since they had their 2011 flood and also political turmoil, and also especially with the military junta taking over, Japan has actually been trying to move away from Thailand and go to other countries like Indonesia, India or Cambodia. But they are slowly gaining confidence in Thailand again, and to go back there and to sort of refresh or rejuvenate their ties with the country, because they see that although Thailand is under General Prayut Chan-o-cha right now, they still have the same potential that they had, and Japan could still come in and make things work with Thailand like they did before.
There's a huge potential in Thailand, and in fact, General Prayut Chan-o-cha was in fact invited by Japan for the meeting, and Japan is the first of a member of the G7 group that will be watched closely by other members as well. For Japan, the decision is not only to engage but also to embrace the government, the Prayut's government. That shows that I think there are two things that I can see out of this. One thing is Japan see Thailand as a strategic partner within Southeast Asia in terms of economic ties. But I think the second one will be most important. What Japan is looking is at political stability, and by having more, I would say, foreign policy partners in Southeast Asia, it hopefully can reduces China's influence throughout Southeast Asia, especially when we have a lot of huge free trade agreement going on, for example RCEP and all that.
And another result of this visit is also General Prayut Chan-o-cha actually came forward and said that he would craft a new constitution for Thailand soon enough, and he would also hold general elections by early next year. The second one, I'm not too convinced that it's gonna happen.
What is it?
The elections part, because that one he has promised so many times that we're gonna have an election, but it never really happened. So he said it's gonna be early next year. Like I said, I'm quite skeptical about that. But it seems that since Mr. Abe visited Thailand, he seems to be adamant about making changes to the country in terms of constitution, in terms of policies, to make it easier for Japan to come in and start investing and building whatever it is that they need to.
So, by the way, the former ASEAN Secretary General, Surin Pitsuwan, told the Bangkok Post that the Japanese government and the private sector are looking for assurance and are asking when Thailand will recover politically and economically. I can say that Japan can be the hope for Thailand for change, even though probably a lot of people might criticize Japan's move on this, but to me I see it as an optimistic move by Japan to do things realistically. I mean, in reality is economic wins, and you need to lure people on the economic gains of how they can form better relationship with countries like Japan, and hopefully from there on, by not just forming the relationship but hopefully transiting into a more democratic Thailand. And one thing that I want to highlight on the other hand is a news by Tan Yen. It's about foreign workers to pay compulsory premium in Vietnam.
So foreign workers in Vietnam will be required to pay like a social insurance premium starting in 2018, when the country is planning to expand its social safety net. And this is apparently an initial step to facilitate bilateral agreements on their social insurance between Vietnam and other countries.
I'm impressed
that this is coming from Vietnam.
Yes, the fact that it's not coming from Malaysia, it's coming from Vietnam, that I'm impressed, because for government to be concerned about the welfare of foreign workers, it shows that, you know, at the end of the day, you know, you can see Vietnam is moving towards a more liberal in terms of economically, and also in terms of the way they see how the future of Vietnam ought to be. They are no longer the Vietnam in the 60s era where it's all about Vietnam War, it's all about communism. I think they're moving towards an era where they want to strengthen their human rights track records, and social safety net is of course one of the key importance in terms of providing welfare towards the foreign workers.
And it seems under the current regulations, what they have now is when an employer goes to work in another country, of course the employer has to actually cut the salary probably a lot in order to put some aside, to allocate some to pay for their social insurance fees on their behalf. But now that Vietnam is doing this, they actually don't have to pay anything while they're abroad, because everything will be covered by the social insurance in the country itself, and that will work out better for the workers.
When you say they don't have to pay anything, meaning?
As in for the insurance, because it will be taken care by the Vietnamese government itself.
So the social insurance law will go into effect in 2016, and because of that, Vietnamese workers will be signing a 1 to 3 months contract and start paying into the social insurance fund in 2018. I would say that this is actually a good move. And currently 11.5 million people are paying compulsory premiums in Vietnam, including company leaders, long-term and government employees. So to expand it to foreign workers is definitely a very good move. And another statistic is more than 37 million others are not paying social insurance, which is quite not a good thing. That's why they need to expand it. And 60% of those living outside of the safety nets are in fact farmers. We all know that a lot of the countries in Indochina, they still rely heavily on agriculture. That's part of their rice bowl. So I think they need to protect their most vulnerable workers, and of course in this case would be farmers.
And Vietnam is looking to actually collect the social insurance payments from half its labor force, which is about 28 million people in 2020, and 25 million of them would be compulsory participants, and they will have about 3 million volunteers. And it's also very impressive that they already have the entire structure, the entire system worked out as to how to address this whole issue about foreign workers and their compulsory premiums in Vietnam.
We'll take another short break. When we return, we will have our last two news, and one of it will be about the AEC.
ASEAN Dailies, first and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, this is Arlene.
Hi, this is Gowri.
And we are back again with us at ASEAN Daily. So, Philippines and Indonesia has signed an anti-drug trafficking accord. That's interesting.
They signed this agreement on combating drug crime, and there are a lot of ongoing efforts by Manila itself. I think we talked about this yesterday, where they are trying to meet with Jokowi to prevent the execution of an Indonesian death row for heroin smuggling. But in the light of that incident, they have actually come forward and agreed to sign a memorandum of understanding to better understand each side's policy on drug trafficking and what are the consequences.
That's the irony of Joko Widodo, because he is seen as a reformer. He's seen as the future of what Indonesia aspire to be. Economically, yes, but in terms of human rights, he's still a bit much, I would say, behind, one step behind. Partly because of the execution of the 6 convicted drug smuggler, and is preparing to execute 11 more, and of course among them are foreigners. And on the other hand, do you know that in the Philippines there's no such thing as death penalty?
Yep. And also, while apart from Jokowi, like what you mentioned, economically, yes, he's a very good reformist. He came up with a lot of good policies, especially in terms of protecting his people who are working in other countries. But when it comes to human rights issues, I would say he's still a bit old-fashioned in that area. He's still resorting to that whole punishing a technique or that kind of measure, as opposed to
this kind of very 50s sort of way of thinking. It's like it's carrot and stick. It's either you reward them or you punish them. In this case, will be death penalty.
That's right, and it's a very harsh penalty that not only Philippines, a lot of countries, of course, have voiced their discontent. A lot of human rights activists in Indonesia itself has come forward and criticized Jokowi, who is supposed to be like the change maker or the like beacon of hope. How can he be the one to come up with all these death penalties?
Yes, how can he be the one? He should be the one. My point is, Jokowi should be very careful of his public image on human rights track record, because he's doing really good in economically. He's putting on a lot of laws in place. He's streamlining stuff. He's ensuring that Indonesia will have that 7% economic growth, but at the same time he has to make sure that don't kill a few people and then ended up being seen as the one that actually move human rights 10 steps behind rather than moving Indonesia 10 steps forward. So yeah, Jokowi, you better be careful. People are watching all over the world. Our last news of today is about AEC 2015, ASEAN Economic Community. Thailand is seeking for the creation of a common labour standard for ASEAN workers. I think that is very applaudable, and especially in Malaysia, where foreign workers, and I think workers in general in Malaysia, are not receiving the kind of labour law that is adequate. So having a common standard for the ASEAN, for the labour law or for workers in Southeast Asia would definitely give a boost towards the AEC.
And of course, this is still in plannings. They don't have a concrete plan or how they are going to implement it, but they will be presenting the proposal very soon. And it seems that this plan might not be perfect, but if the workers even get a minimum of protection, it will be better than nothing. And this is what they are trying to go for, because without a social dimension, the AEC would not really mean anything to the region.
Totally agree with that. So I guess in the meantime, we just have to wait and see how all these bodies within Southeast Asia are able to work together, because it's not easy to find a standard labor agreement between all Southeast Asian countries when they have different labor standards in itself. So that's all for our ASEAN Daily today.
Don't forget to, of course, listen to us daily on DurianASEAN.com. You can also download the TuneIn app on your smartphone. And we also update very regularly on our Facebook page, Twitter, YouTube, and we also have an Instagram account that they can download.
And of course, you can always, listen to us at our website, DurianASEAN.com. Stay with us again on our second segment, which is the Durian Hit.